My name is Darryl Kwal. Thanks for being with us. Tonight, the Institute of Statistical, Social and Economic Research, ISSER, is casting doubt over government's revenue targets in the 2018 budget. It follows a similar warning by accounting firm PricewaterhouseCoopers. According to ISSER, government may fail to achieve its economic targets for 2018 unless it improves revenue performance and ensures fiscal discipline. Head of Economics Division at the ISSER, Dr. Charles Acker, was speaking at a post-budget review analysis program.
Of government is, as signaled by the 2018 budget projections, is good and in the right direction. The realization of the broad fiscal objectives will, however, depend on two complementary factors. First, the revenue performance must be good and targets met. Should revenue targets be missed, the government may again be forced to sacrifice capital spending and consequently medium-term growth. Second, it is important that government remains disciplined with respect to its spending. Typically, we note that the immediate post-election year is usually one that successive governments have done well fiscally. It is therefore important that the government continues to keep its discipline from a spending point so that the macroeconomic gains made in 2017 can be further consolidated.
ISSER is also urging government to check its appetite for borrowing, warning the country's debt burden could escalate. Here's Dr. Acker again.
Interest payments on the public debt stood at some 9.7 billion Ghana cedis and is projected to rise to nearly 15 billion Ghana cedis by close of 2018, representing one of the fastest growing items of expenditure in the budget. We note that this penchant to resort to external borrowing poses a macroeconomic risk. As the debt burden continues to escalate, continuing currency depreciation could lead to a rapid increase in the value of foreign currency denominated debt and its concomitant interest payments beyond sustainable levels. The simple policy conclusion is that if Ghana wishes to grow faster, it must first raise the balance of payment constraint on the demand and put an ice on its appetite for borrowing.
In another development, government's quest to conclude the IMF program possibly by April 2019 could face further challenges. That's a conclusion one may draw after government set a budget deficit higher than what the IMF program has projected. George Yafe has more.
According to Ghana's program with the IMF, government should end 2018 with a projected budget deficit of 3.8%. However, government is now looking at a deficit of 4.5% for next year, higher than what the IMF program has projected. The budget deficit is basically described as the amount of money spent in relation to revenue mobilized. So, for instance, government is hoping to spend some 61 billion Ghana cedis for next year against a projected revenue target of 51 billion Ghana cedis. This will result in a budget deficit of about 11 billion Ghana cedis. This is what has been expressed in percentage terms as 4.5% for next year. For some, the budget deficit for next year has raised a lot of concerns about whether government can indeed end the program by the first quarter of 2019. This is because sources say government and the IMF have all agreed that December 31, 2018 should be the test date for assessing government performance before it can indeed say Ghana has concluded the IMF program. But for Professor Peter Korte, the IMF should revise its notes because it is not possible to have such drastic cuts in budget deficit in just 2 years.
From such a high deficit of 11% within a short space of time to 3.8, I think is unrealistic. Bear in mind that if you overcut expenditure, you are hurting jobs, you are hurting the economy, you are not stimulating growth. So you need to strike a balance between cutting expenditure and also stimulating growth and creating the needed jobs. From such a high deficit of 11% within a short space of time to 3.8, I think is unrealistic. Bear in mind that if you overcut expenditure, you are hurting jobs, you are hurting the economy, you are not stimulating growth. So you need to strike a balance between cutting expenditure and also stimulating growth and creating the needed jobs.
Former Deputy Minister of Finance Kokurikits Hagen says the development might not be good for the economy.
If you become overambitious and overpromise, which leads to a high government expenditure, yet you are cutting the very revenue that will give you the cash to fund the programs, then you are creating what is known as the public sector, the public sector borrowing, requirement and all that, as they have in England. And that is exactly what we are talking about. That is the deficit that you're doing, because you have to go and fund that thing. So we have to, if we want to pursue, a program where we do a lot of things on increasing expenditure, then we have to be also doing things that will help us to increase our revenue.
So why is the completion date such a big deal? Well, for some, maybe government quickly wants to get out of this program and actually roll out its own policies aimed at stabilizing the economy and do away with those IMF restrictions. For some, any attempts to send signals to donors and investor community that it is not committed to pursuing the program might not be good for the economy.
Meanwhile, country director at the World Bank, Henry Kerali, does not think that Ghana's program is really under threat. He explains to Joy Business how government can get around the situation.
We believe that it's in the right direction. Obviously, it's going to take time. On the issue of revenues, it is the responsibility of Ghanaians to pay their taxes, and this is what the Minister of Finance made. It's also the responsibility of companies, whether they are nationals or internationals, to also pay their taxes to the exchequer. So it is the responsibility of the nation as a whole. And there's responsibility on the part of individuals to save more. So in terms of revenue, it is going to take time, but I believe the framework is there to be able to boost this. But on the broader picture of growth, we see growth this year 6 to 7%, next year 7 to 8%. Subject, of course, as always, to no further shocks of any kind. So the growth trajectory is positive. The outlook overall is positive. This year, 2017, we believe will be, as I say, 6 to 7% compared to 3.5% in 2016.
You talked about the program being, policies that they've outlined being in line with the IMF program and all the rest. And the program is forecasting a budget deficit of 3.8 for this next year. Government is looking at 4.5. Obviously, there are some serious implications there for the fund program.
There are implications, but there are always ways to make adjustments. If your revenues are down, you can always seek to make adjustments to your expenditures in order to maintain a balance. I will leave the discussion between what the final outcome target should be, whether it's 3.8% deficit or 4.5% deficit at the end of 2018. That's a discussion between the IMF and the government. But as far as the World Bank is concerned, we focus more on the growth, and the growth looks positive. We also focus on the debt levels. We are supporting government with its management of the debt stock. We've seen action to reduce the debt to reprofile, I should say, the debt in the energy sector. All of these are actions that we support.
Well, we've been getting some response from the IMF to concerns that Ghana may not be able to meet the April 2019 date for completing the fund program. This was after government set a higher budget deficit than what has been outlined in the IMF program. Let's get some analysis to the story. My colleague George Jaffe joins me in the studio. George, jog our memory a bit. Why are we discussing this in the first place?
So when Ghana signed up to this IMF program, originally was scheduled to end in a particular period. Now we are looking at December 2018, and both government and the IMF have agreed that if we are going to end the program, you should be able to meet certain critical targets in the program. One of them is ensuring that you contain your borrowing. If you're not raising more revenue, that's where this whole budget deficit comes in. Now, for the end of that particular program, you're looking at concluding it at 3.8 budget
An email to the fund to get some understanding first. What do you make of the budget itself? Well, officially they are saying that, well, the thing that the policies outlined in the budget, they are indeed good, all right. On the bit about the deficit, they didn't directly respond to us, but what we got from them in the email was that they are willing to work with government to improve their revenue and expenditure. But Daryl, off record, we knew that the fund itself wanted government to actually put in fresh taxes to actually help meet the revenue gap. But government didn't do that. Also, we understand that the fund has some serious concerns about the budget because it was outside the whole program that they have with the IMF. So it looks like unless the fund is willing to waive that target, if revenue doesn't improve, if the economy doesn't expand, then trying to make an intelligent guess, just like what the research would do, it might be difficult for the program to end even in April 2019.
How big is this setback, the fact that we may not be able to meet the completion date? Is it anything we should be concerned about or worried about?
From this government's posture, it appears they don't believe that they need an external party to help them manage the economy. They believe that they have what it takes to manage the economy. Therefore, they don't need an IMF program. But it appears we are already in. So they really want to get out of this program and do away with all those restrictions, the borrowing restrictions and all the rest and blah, blah, blah. They want to get out of that. For the external parties, as in the donors and the investor community, they still believe that the IMF brings on board some credibility in checking government. And therefore, even if they have any concerns, as long as Ghana is under this fund program, they are satisfied. So any attempts to quickly get out of the program could send some wrong signals to our donors who could hold on to some disbursement. And also for all those foreign investors who are participating in our bonds, the ISSER bonds, the Euro bond, they could also punish us. Already, the CD is still yet to recover fully from the recent shocks that they've given. And if any signal goes out that government want to get out of this program, government want to do things to frustrate the fund, we could be punished heavily for that one. All right, George, we are with that perspective to this story. Thanks very much indeed. We want to move on to some other story we're following for you tonight. The Chamber of Mines has launched a local content online portal designed to showcase the opportunities available to local businesses within the mining industry. Currently, the country's mining laws require that only 19 products have to be acquired locally. Unfortunately, some of these items are not readily available for local manufacturers, leaving mining firms with no option than to import. The online portal is expected to link mining companies with sources of products to be purchased. Here's more in this report.
We are, witnessing the launch of the local content online portal and that of the local content day. To help us understand this by the Chamber of, Mines, we're here with the Chief Executive Officer, Suleiman Koni, to help us understand the relevance of this to Ghana's extractive industry. Hello, sir. Many thanks for being here on the marketplace. First of all, why this very launch?
I think it's important that as an industry, which sometimes is referred to as an enclave, that is to say that it has no bearing or linkage at all with the rest of the economy. It's important that we showcase what we have been doing over the years and the other opportunities which we need as a country to take advantage of. We have over the years been engaging various actors, AGI, Chamber of Commerce and industry and so on and so forth. But we thought that it's about time we made this information, virtual, so that practically anybody, anywhere in the world who may be interested in the mining industry's value chain should be able to have access to information based upon which you can take a commercial decision.
Speaking of making the very best of information, we are yet to find out what this portal is all about. But walk us through some of the key features of this portal.
Well, and as I made it clear in my presentation, that this portal is not a virtual marketplace like most portals. Well, of course, there's an industry, creation of a number of companies. So sometimes it's a bit difficult to do what a single company would do. But the whole idea is to aggregate the demand for industry and showcase and say, this is it. Of the demand for industry, this is what is produced locally or manufactured locally, and this is what the demand is. So the difference naturally becomes the opportunity. So that is what we have showcased within the portal. Again, there are other areas where we don't have any local manufacturing at all, but we believe that as a country we have a competitive advantage to produce. So we have showcased this as well, so that will be investors who will be interested in the value chain of the mining industry can go there, look at the numbers, probably come back to us for more information, and then hopefully within the next few years, if not months, they would be able.
In other news tonight, the National Vocational Technical Institute in Kumasi is to set up a graduate cooperative system for its students. It is intended to encourage trained personnel of diverse disciplines to form businesses upon completion of school. Manager of the institute, Richard Adojemfi, is optimistic the initiative will address challenges associated with individuals going it all alone. He spoke at an entrepreneurship seminar for final year students. Prince Apia has more.
The seminar was meant to expose students to easy ways to start and sustain businesses. Institute manager Richard Adojemfi says the cooperatives will be mentored and monitored in order to keep them and the businesses afloat.
What we call graduate cooperative system. Now we are trying to put them together. About 5 students coming together, then they will run their business. We will help them in terms of capacity building. We will help them and also help them to secure jobs. So coming next year, we are going to start these concepts, and we will bring them together. If somebody is a mechanic, light duty, somebody is heavy duty, so to help them to start their business, establish them. And when we discuss this concept with some of the NGOs, people are interested to see us, because going as individual, establishing business in Ghana as individual at this level, so the majority of them find it very difficult. We also identify successful entrepreneurs. Then we assign them as mentors to help them to develop their business, aside what, as a school, what we are going to do.
Students had opportunity to interact with some successful business operators. One of the speakers, Winifred Quantin Dakwa, reiterated vocational and technical training is critical.
These vocational people, sometimes in the environment, we don't appreciate them. We always put them aback, thinking that they are not good. And that all that we can do in Ghana is just to be so much into our books, and we don't value them. But there's a need for us to value them.
Michael Golightly is head of Business Advisory Center at the regional office of the National Board for Small-Scale Industries. He tells Lab Business students have no choice but to explore business startups in the face of growing unemployment.
So it is wise and prudent for upcoming students, finishing students, to enter into self-employment, because with the self-employment it's easy to begin something, because per their training it's possible and workable to start an SME. Though it is not easy getting capital to start, but with a little resource, we can start something.
Prince Apia reporting.
And we'll still stay in Kumasi because recalcitrant traders continue to make life difficult for city authorities as they try to move them out of the congested central business district. They still occupy streets, pavements, and other unauthorized places, maintaining they do not have adequate space at designated markets. Not even the threat of a police and military deployment has succeeded to get them out. They claim all designated market spaces at the Abinchi Market and Racecourse are occupied. Erastus Asaridonko has been following the story for us.
Named after late Asante Hema Efiakobi Sewampim, the market center, also known as Abinchi, has facilities and amenities suitable for business, far more than Racecourse and other markets. A number of transport unions have set up terminals there, but the full potential of the facility is yet to be utilized.
Now these are empty tables ready to be filled, but you ask yourself whether they have owners. Yes, they've been paid for 200 Ghana cedis back in 2011. But their owners are occupying spaces at the Central Business District, congesting the city center. And that is what authorities are trying to do to decongest, bring them back to occupy the tables that they themselves have acquired but have abandoned. Mr. Sedofori is the manager of Abinchi Market.
When you come to operate, you pay 50 pesos. 50 pesos, yeah. But because they are not coming, once you see the empty table, can you go to the empty table and take money? No. So we are losing seriously here. And as you can see, because of that, the place is also deteriorating. Because we don't get the money to make renovation exercises here. We have security men, we have sweepers and others. Because of the lack of finance, we don't have money to pay them. So the place is deteriorating. Yes.
So when you heard that the traders were saying that the spaces here have been already sold and so they do not have spaces here, that is why they won't move to Abinchi, how did you feel?
They are peddling lies, because KMA have made an announcement to them day and day night to them that they should come here. The tables are here for them. So I don't see why they should be in town and then peddling lies that the place is already full. No.
Mrs. Grace Ejedako is head of the dry fish sellers at the market. She's the only one out of the lot who relocated to Abinchi Market since she acquired the shed in 2012.
It was needless relocating them to race course. The money spent there should have been used to improve conditions here. The place is just a temporary space for those there. Most of the traders at the race course have spaces here. We were all there, and when the space was taken, it brought us here.
It will need strict enforcement of bylaws to get traders to utilize facilities provided by city authorities at the high cost, while traders continue to complain about space at satellite markets. Reporting for Joy News, Erastus Asaredonko, Kumasi.
Well, away from that, and farmers are warning repayment of inputs supplied under the Planting for Food and Jobs program may be negatively affected if the Agric Minister's decision to accept only cash is not reviewed. Government earlier this year supplied inputs to the farmers who were expected to repay 50% of the cost either in cash or with their produce at the end of the farming season. But a letter from the minister's office to various MMDAs is now directing for acceptance of only cash. Programs coordinator of the Peasant Farmers Association, Charles Nyaba, says the move amounts to breach of contract.
The agreement was that government was subsidizing input 50%. The other 50%, farmers were to make a down payment of 25%. And when they produce, they pay the other 25% either in kind or in cash. So most farmers actually went into production with the hope that they can pay in kind, because access to market has always been a problem. We are surprised to hear a directive from the minister to all district and regional directors that government is no more accepting in-kind payment. And we are thinking that that is unfair to farmers, because agreement is an agreement. And if you enter an agreement with a second party, and you even need to change or to alter that agreement, you need to discuss with that party to agree. But for you to ignore the views of farmers and just issue this directive, we think that government have not been fair to farmers.
Is this going to affect the confidence of the program you have with government?
Yes, I think already some farmers have started calling and they are lamenting that that's how governments always do and program fails. They are thinking that government doesn't want the program to succeed, because one major reason or one major aim of the program was to address the issue of access to credit, the issue of market access. So the market access component was for government to receive these products in kind. Now the government is reneging from that position we are thinking that it's likely to reduce the confidence level that farmers have in the program.
Time to bring you our interview of the day. And the ICT sector holds great potential in transforming the economy and growth of the private sector. That's according to a new World Bank report, a private sector diagnostic report released in Accra today. The report noted that developments in the private sector showed that ICT can be used to deal with most of the challenges facing the private sector and help firms play a lead role in transforming the economy. Sheikh Omar Saidi is Regional Director of IFC for Africa.
Make this report relevant, all the key stakeholders that have been identified will be playing their role. We've seen government really look at this report. They've given us their feedback. They've been very, very engaged with us. So on their part, it's about very specific reforms that have been identified in the different sectors that we've looked at. And then they will work with all the relevant parties to make those happen. Obviously, they will have to look at each and every one of them to make sure that they're also relevant in terms of what they are planning to do. So that's one key stakeholder. The other key stakeholder would be the private sector. So if you have de-risking that happens in a given sector that makes it possible for you to sustain your operations, and the opportunity comes your way, I guess we'll expect that you will take advantage of those opportunities, looking at not only your skills base, but also your capital and everything that you can put on the table to go and nurture those opportunities. And then you have other participants or stakeholders such as us, the World Bank Group, IFC and the World Bank. And of course, you have our sister institution, MIGA, as well, that as those opportunities create possibilities to fulfill our development role through financing, through advice, through all the means that we typically use to be involved.
GRA requests you to be a good citizen. Pay your taxes to enable government provide free SHS, good schools, and fund the National Health Insurance Scheme. Taxpayers are nation builders. Hashtag our taxes, our future.
And that's our program tonight. There's more news on our website, myjoyonline.com/business. My name is Darryl Kwao. Thanks for watching.